What's the worst thing you've seen or heard in a game of Truth or Dare? I got dared to use a zip line that nobody had touched in decades. So we climbed up a mountain while wasted in the middle of the night and found that my friend was not bullcrapping and that it actually did exist. We used our zip on it and sailed over a 1,500-foot drop. And then the thought occurred to me that I had no way of getting back. And I had not even brought a flashlight with me and had absolutely no knowledge of the part of the mountain I was zipping to. So I basically stood in place for 7 hours or so. I don't know if that was the worst, but it was definitely the most stupid, considering that the whole point of the game was to get with some girls who were no longer in a partying mood after I disappeared into the night. When I was about 15 years old, my old high school soccer team had a co-ed spaghetti dinner that turned into a co-ed sleepover. Maybe about 6 guys and 5 girls. We ended up taking a bottle of really cheap Mr. Boston vodka from this kid's parents, and all of us began drinking much faster than 15-year-olds should. I was beginning to feel pretty nauseous, but was determined to stay in the game of Truth or Dare that we'd started. I was then dared to kiss the bare butt cheeks of one of the more crude chicks on the girls' team. As I pressed my lips to her cheek, she thought it would be hilarious to grab the back of my head and let rip right in my face. The heat and smell were too much for my stomach to bear, and as I pulled away, I blew chunks all over her back and butt. One of my mates said he had his Johnson pierced and nobody believed him, as he'd sometimes exaggerate or make up stories. To prove it, he put a straw through the piercing, and then another of my mates was dared to drink his drink through the straw. It was hilarious and weird, and both parties regretted it immediately. I was playing Truth or Dare with a few friends, my best friend and my best friend's wife. When they were married, they were both virgins by choice, from a traditional household. We're having fun and it comes to my turn, and I ask my best friend's wife, Truth or Dare, and she answers, Truth. My friend and I would always joke about our significant others despising the act of doing it in the butt and being disgusted by it. So I asked the joke, have you ever done it in the butt? She says, yes. Her husband turns bright red and says, no, we haven't, and the two leave shortly after. Turns out she was a traditional virgin, but had lost her, rear virginity back in high school. We didn't really talk after that. Church values. You see, at that point, just doing the deed the usual way feels less sinful and dirty, to be honest. Not that there's anything wrong with doing it in the butt if you're into that, I just think that surely your divine being can't think that your workaround was any better than what you were trying to avoid. Same motions, same intent, same goal, for him at least, and just more number 2. Ugh. I'm a little late here, but my friend answered a truth and told everyone that he has 2 buttholes. Long story short, I've seen it, and that guy has 'em. And what I learned later from the internet is that there are many people with 2 buttholes. Color me surprised. Really drunk at a house party in high school. This hot girl named Jennifer took a truth. So the question was what her worst experience in bed had been. Suffice to say that the answer devolved into a cryfest about some legitimately traumatic stuff. After that, we didn't play the game very much anymore. When I was 17, I worked as a summer camp counselor. The week of our orientation, before the campers arrived, all the counselors were down by the lake and we started a game of Truth or Dare. Everyone was pretty normal except for this quiet girl that was a Disney freak. Everything Disney. Pajamas, sleeping bag, hair ties, t-shirts, all Disney, all the time. Being 17-year-olds in the woods, our truths and dares got pretty raunchy pretty quickly. After finishing my dare, I turned to her and asked, Truth or Dare? Truth was the reply. Okay. Have you ever done the deed? I asked. Yes, but only with one person. The answer then went a little too dark for YouTube. But suffice to say, we probably should have called the cops about what we heard. Game fricking over. For the people asking for a follow-up, many of the counselors and naturalists spoke with her that night and the next morning. Her father had been jailed a few years ago prior to her telling us. One dare was to bake cookies whilst in the buck, but then we were out of sugar, so a follow-up dare required a second person going to the neighbor's door in their underwear to ask for a cup of sugar. It worked and the cookies were delicious. The grad student neighbors didn't even bat an eye. In high school, a group of friends were playing Truth or Dare drunk after a party at my house. One of my friends had a crush on a girl and was trying hard to get with her. So when it was her turn to ask him, he suavely stated, "Dare." She told him to put one of the lights adorning the nearby Christmas tree into his wee-wee hole. He did, she was disgusted, and ended up loudly hooking up with another friend in an adjacent room, like soul-crushingly loud, while he stayed on the couch nursing his burnt meatus. 'Tis the season, I guess. One time I was dared to kiss this girl and I passed because I was in a long-going relationship with a girl I really love, of 3 years, so I did the following dare instead. I poured really hard rum onto my hand, lit it, and I had to keep it lit for as long as I could. Once it got too hot to handle, I had to put it out. Part of the dare was to put it out with the watermelon next to us. So I proceeded to punch it open with my flaming fist and stick my hand in it for 3 long, annoyingly sticky hours. I mean, you punched a hole in a watermelon with fire for love. That's amazingly badass. I was at a Truth or Dare party in college. Everyone pays $5 to get in and gets the same allotment of Monopoly money. You bet people to do things and accept bets, and whoever has the most at the end of the night gets to keep the door money. Greatest party ever. I just dared girls to make out with me all night, until I ran out of money, so I had to accept a couple of dares. Someone dared this other guy to eat a zebra cake off my butt, and dared me to drop trow and allow him to. So I figured, I'm not eating it, no big deal. It wasn't that terrible, but it did get my butt all sticky. I also felt like I couldn't really complain because of what the other guy had to do. At age 18, while at a friend's house digging around looking for a lighter, he finds an adult toy in his single dad's bedroom. It was one of those hot, pink, sparkly male member toys with the rabbit thing on it. Something that didn't really seem like a guy toy, and it was in the spare nightstand, so we assumed maybe an old girlfriend's or something. Fast forward a few weeks later, his dad was out of town and there were a few of us over playing Truth or Dare, and I dared him to do something with his dad's toy. At first, his face turned 10 shades of red, embarrassed in front of everyone else, but then he manned up, grabbed it with a Ziploc bag worn like a glove, and rubbed some sliced habanero peppers all over it. This was a Friday night and his dad was supposed to be back Saturday. Saturday night rolls around and he and our other friend and myself are all in his house quietly as we had been drinking and had snuck in. This was about 8 p.m.-ish. As the other friend and I stood in the driveway, we heard the most god-awful, blood-curdling scream, the kind of scream that sounds like someone is being murdered. We dashed in just in time to meet our friend in the hallway as he sprinted into his dad's room. His mum, as in his father's ex-wife, is on the floor butt naked, curled up in a ball screaming her head off. Apparently, his mum and dad had been screwing around behind the family's back. A hospital trip followed, and after spending the night in the ER, not knowing what the frick happened, they ended up coming out in the open, getting back together and then remarried. That was 12 years ago and they're still together. For their wedding present, I gave them a jar of habaneros that they still don't understand to this day. Thank you, Ryan. If you're ever out there, your mum's burning bush has become mildly famous on Reddit and YouTube. I never knew the internet liked a good, fiery love story. Your friend's cruel actions brought his parents back together. That's absolutely amazing. Parent Trap 2, Habanero Boogaloo. Well, all's well that ends well, I suppose. My God, I cannot imagine getting a high Scoville score pepper on one's private parts. I've repeatedly done it to my eyes before, but never downstairs. I do not envy your mother. A girl at a party I once went to got dared to sit on a small lava lamp. As in, sit on it, if you get what I mean. Anyway, this thing was on and hot. The poor girl sat for 2 seconds and jumped right back up. Turned out she gave herself burns on the inside of her lady parts. My friends and I dared a kid to snort a bit of very, very hot sauce. He snorted it like a champ and then spent the rest of the night with blood pouring from his face. 7th grade. What were we thinking? It wasn't really a dare, but a drunken friend said he'd show us how much of a man he was. In quick succession, he chugged about 250 mils of Jack Daniels, snorted a line of salt and then poured vinegar into one eye and squeezed a lemon in the other. Everyone laughed at him because he had to run to the bathroom crying to wash his eyes. I saw a prolapsed butthole as proof for a truth that no one would believe. It was not a pretty flower. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. It's not that bad comparatively, but it was still unpleasant. In 4th grade, we played Truth or Dare at my birthday party. It was all guys, which made it kinda weird. One friend dared another friend to get into the buck, which was really weird. So my pal begins a striptease as we all beg him to stop. He got down to his stained briefs. This guy didn't let his wee-wee drain all the way, I guess, and was just beginning to lower them when we heard a scream. My 7-year-old sister had just walked into the room to see a scrawny, self-proclaimed street-rapping gangster/meteorologist busting out his hog. He dove into his sleeping bag and didn't talk to anyone for the rest of the night. We decided video games were a lot more fun and immediately ended the game. My friend denied anything had ever happened the next day. This guy was obsessed with weather in elementary school, all he ever talked about. He was a white kid who moved to our very white city from a very diverse, low-income city, so he talked like a thug while going on about cold fronts. He did end up becoming a meteorologist though, so hey, good for him. I got really drunk in a game with some workmates, and I had to pull out my ball bag and touch it against another guy's. Probably pretty tame compared to the rest of this video though. Went to an adult-themed elf party once for Christmas. Good mix of a crowd until we all got absolutely off our heads. Some guy got dared to be blindfolded and have a down-under kiss from some random girl. A guy at the party who'd always denied being gay decided it would be funny for him to do this particular act. That's how my friends Tom and Chad met and later got married. We were on our way to Hershey's Park for the 8th grade class trip. All the cool kids sat in the back of the bus. Somehow I got a seat back there too. It began as a silly middle school game of Truth or Dare, until this girl was dared to go south of the border on some guy for 2 minutes, and then a few turns later, she was dared to do it again to a different guy. I was an innocent cream puff Casper milquetoast, having never seen anything like this outside of my computer, and I was in shock. Not super risque, but it gave her the funniest nickname for the next 4 years in high school. Double header. An entire room of girls had to rub A535 gel on their hoo-has. There was silence, and then screams. I watched my friend take a crap in the park, and then we threw rocks at it. I miss being a teenager. One of the popular girls in my high school admitted to regularly making brown in her hand. She took truth and was asked to tell an embarrassing secret or something like that. She said that she was always embarrassed whenever there was a splashing sound in the toilet when she went number 2, so she'd always do it in her hand and then slide it quietly into the water. She went from being a popular girl to being the brown-handed girl pretty quick. A friend of mine back in high school was asked where the weirdest place he'd ever tickled his pickle was. His answer was a train, which, it's pretty weird, but we did ask. And then, for whatever reason, he didn't stop talking there, and he told us where he put the mess afterwards. When the train staff came through, he fricking ate it. Again, he just told us that last part without anyone even asking. Oh, and there it is. There is the winner of the Gagging Narrator Award. I mean, I'm thankful you didn't just wipe it out on the upholstery, but my god, next time can you just not do that particular deed at all, so there's no need for any grisly choice like that to be made? Oh! Okay, so this is a long story, but I promise the payoff is there. First college party. Commence after party Truth or Dare with about 8 people. 3 a.m. rolls around and we're down to 6 people, but things start getting a little raunchy. A kiss here, a flash there, take off an article of clothing, all in good fun. 3:30 rolls around and damn, I still remember the time. This really cute girl who I was crushing on since high school asked me and I answered truth, because by this time I was down to my boxers, and I didn't really feel like sitting with my eggplant out. Anyway, she asks me some stupid question, I forget what it was exactly, along the lines of what's the craziest place you've done the deed. I was a virgin at the time, so my answer naturally was a lie. However, it was a boring one. I said the living room at my parents' house. Everyone started booing me, saying that the answer wasn't worth a turn, and told the girl to go again. I got really embarrassed because not only was it a giant lie, but a giant lie that was apparently too prudish. For some reason, let's call it booze and green herb, I agreed to go again. Inside, I was having a panic attack and wanted to cry. Yes, men have feelings too. So to avoid a repeat of that question, I went with dare. Screw it, I thought. I'm decently hung, so I'd rather have it out than have people find out that I'd never put it in anything. I was 18. In my defense, losing your virginity was everything back then. So she dares me to go south of the border on her. This is literally every guy's dream, right? The girl you want more than anything but thought you couldn't have just asks you to give her a down-under kiss. So I obliged whole fricking heartedly. And it went all downhill from there, folks. As soon as it sunk in what she'd asked for, things got real stiff down there. And I was wearing those peekaboo boxers, so guess who showed his face without me noticing? And guess whose face began drooling? So yeah, pre-splooge is a real thing, is something I learned that night. So here I am sitting across from the hottest girl who's ever asked me to just do some stuff with her, with my mister out, oozing, throbbing, and leaking all over my boxers, surrounded by 3 other girls and another guy as well as some random party stragglers who are just watching this all unfold. It gets pretty bad. I notice what's going on, but I don't think much of it because she's already taken her undies off. So all she does is hike up her skirt and spread 'em wide. Holy crap, I'd never done this before. The most I'd ever done with a girl was a kiss at that point. I should preface this by saying I get all gassy when I'm nervous. Some of you may know where this is going, but I guarantee you fricking don't. So now she's lying like this on the floor and I need to make a move, so I do what any girl-loving guy would do in the most awkward way possible. I shifted down to all fours and crawled toward her like a frickin' tiger or something. I put my face in the correct area, but my hands aren't touching her or anything. Instead, I'm on all fours like I'm a puppy sniffing at her. After a few seconds, the position gets horribly uncomfortable and I shift my weight in such a way that my butt is now sticking up and my knees are underneath my body. What happens next is the single worst 30 seconds of my life, followed by years of shame. She begins moaning and tells me to take off my boxers. I quickly oblige, but I can only get them half off in this position without stopping what I'm doing. So I'm now mooning 3 chicks and a guy that are sitting behind me, with my hairy crevice perfectly on display about 2 feet from their faces. The woman that I'm doing this to starts moaning more and saying she's about to get there. Anxiety gets the better of me and I get super nervous. Did I mention I get gassy when I'm nervous? And did I mention that alcohol also gives me horrible indigestion? The more things heat up, the more I'm now focusing on what's about to be the biggest toot of my life. She begins to go into her state of euphoria, and I can feel it from her downstairs and her other muscles tensing up. I get so excited but simultaneously relieved that I can stop and excuse myself to go to the bathroom and let one out. Except I got relieved too soon. The blast was explosive, but the real problem was that I hadn't done number 2 all day. So the net result was this girl moaning, screaming, and having the time of her life while I was simultaneously taking a projectile crap on 4 people behind me. The smell. Oh God, the smell. I didn't want to turn around, but I had to before the other girl was even done with arriving. They were fricking coated. One of the girls got it worse than everyone else. Her face looked like it was dipped in a bucket of Nutella. Chunky, watery Nutella. The guy got it bad too, and they all got it in their hair, their mouths. Oh God. So now this was all happening in several seconds. So when the girl finally opens her eyes, all she sees is my gaping butthole with bits of number 2 sticking out of it. I turn around to look at the damage, and me on all fours, and the other people soaked in it, starting to scream. She screamed, I screamed, and the guy began hitting me, covering me in my own number 2 that was falling off his face and neck, except several seconds after he started hitting me, he began blowing chunks. His hands slipped on the upchuck and he collapsed on top of me. 2 undressed guys on top of each other, coated in splooge, chunks, and explosive number 2, surrounded by hot chicks, most of whom are also covered in number 2. In short, the story has haunted me for 5 years. Epilogue, I actually dated this girl for 2 years afterwards, and the chick who got coated in my crap the worst is now my best friend. The guy I actually never saw again. He left that night. I saw the other 2 girls from time to time, but we never made eye contact. For some reason, people started calling me butt candy at parties after that. The nickname stuck around at parties until I moved cities a year ago. Up until now, the narrator has never had a story that he couldn't finish without laughing, so well done to that author. Whether your tale is real or fictional, I salute you. My God. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.